Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 185. I'm here with my co-facilitators, Lionel and Sean. What's going
Hey,
on?
how you doing? What's going on today?
Good, brother. Yourself?
I
Brother
am
Sean, what's
well.
going on?
How
Hey,
you
what's
doing?
going on, sir? How are you guys?
Good.
I'm
Good.
good, good, hanging in there. It's good to have you on. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. And there's a document in the description beneath the video. You should actually use that to follow along with us as we go along. This is the Information Technology Spring Summit for 2019. Last year we did this around Q3, Q4. Um, in between that time frame about information technology, we had a summit back then, but I just want to make sure we retouch and revise a lot of things that's happening for 2019 and kind of go into this a little bit deeper. New year, new content. So, hey, brother Gab, what's going on? Thank you for stopping by. Hit that like button, share it if possible. Also, as a FYI for your information, we are third wave Manosphere 3.0 compliant. So that means no BFF, no no extra non-curricular stuff. You're gonna get self-improvement on this channel, and we're gonna do that tonight with the Spring Summit. So please pay
Yes,
attention.
yes.
Let me share my screen. We'll get started. So we'll go through some of these news articles and just kind of do a rough briefing on what's going on in the IT field. All right. So first item on the docket is from Raul TechWire. Red Hat signature Fedora logo to disappear from headquarters tower May 1st. So that's sometime next week. The three things are certain in business: financial success, financial death, or merger. And on a corporate logo change. Red Hat at age 26 is no different. And the true sign of changing times, Red Hat is not only on its way to merging with IBM, but more apparent and more immediate, is also in verge of removing its red Fedora logo with the 19-story downtown headquarters in Raleigh soon to no longer flash the titled hat that has been the Skyline eye magnet for nearly 7 years. Remember the stink that people remember the stink that some people raised when the hatters unveiled the massive fedora and glaring red band around the top of the former Progress Energy quarters at 100 East Davy Street. So I just want to that's the actual logo. I just wanted to touch on this because Red Hat was acquired by IBM, so that's why there's such a major change. And one of the things that some people need to understand here is that Red Hat is still going to be Red Hat, but it's just under the IBM umbrella. So a lot of things are going to come out of this. Red Hat is a major player in the Linux space, probably the most dominant player in America, and probably the second dominant player on the global stage. So IBM making this big acquisition was something that was not readily seen. So this is going to be good for the industry. At least you hope so. All right, let me get to this next item on the docket. What the hell is this? This next one is from nextweb.com. Why shadow IT is next looming cybersecurity threat. Shadow IT is an issue with just about every organization faces on some level. But when I speak to executives and IT leaders, it's simply not a topic that comes up. When I do bring it up, it quickly becomes clear that the tech industry as a whole underestimates the size and scope of the issue. And that lack of awareness and understanding is posing an ever increasing threat to data protection and cybersecurity. Some executives I speak with haven't heard of the term shadow IT, which refers to systems, software, and applications that individuals in an organization use on a regular basis without the knowledge of executive leadership or the IT department. And when I tell them that recent research by the Everest Group found that upwards of 50% of the technology spend in organization lurks in the shadows, I can see their jaws drop. This means that half their budgets are being spent on software that teams, groups, and business units are purchasing without the IT department's knowledge. Collaboration tools represent an especially tricky category, with over two-thirds of the teams telling Nextplane in a recent survey that they are implemented they've implemented their own deployments without coordinating with IT. And some 82% have pushed back against IT's attempts to implement a vetting process for collaboration tools. This is very true. This is very true. I go through this a lot at work, and I can tell you that one of the things that irks me is that sometimes I can see everybody's computer and I can see everything going on in the network from a security standpoint, because that's kind of my job, right? I see certain things and I'm like, why is this application or why is this piece of software on this person's computer? How did it even get there? They will circumvent. They will do whatever they can to step around, not just IT but cybersecurity as well. And we don't even know what's going on because they needed to have it or somebody gave them permission to do it, but it didn't come from us. So what happens when something like that happens in an organization? If we can't vet it, then we can't uh, determine whether or not it's vulnerable. So sometimes they'll have certain plugins, like the article stated, and those plugins may come from a rogue source. So let's say they went to download source, something like 3Cows or something like that. There's no telling if that application or that plugin is being downloaded from a legitimate source, because that application, the installation tools, can actually be compromised by third-party sources or the bad guys, and then they re-upload it to the share site. You download it, you bring it onto your corporate network, onto your corporate device, and now you have malware on your system, and that malware can now spread throughout the whole entire organization because you done sent an email attachment with that rogue plugin or that rogue software, and it probably looked through all the address books in Outlook, got everybody's email addresses out there and contact information. Now they're doing phishing attacks. So now the whole entire organization is under attack, and we don't even know where to start because you went behind IT's back and cybersecurity's back, the cybersecurity organization's back, to install software that really was not legitimate to begin with. So these are the type of things that we do go through. I agree with this article. So yeah, Just BU TV. Never heard of Shadow IT. Interesting. Yeah, you have Shadow IT, and you also have shadow banning in the manosphere, but that's a whole other issue.
That's the that's a good way of looking at it. I've never thought about that.
Happens all the time. Happens all the
That's
time. But 9 times out of 10, a company's downfall usually comes from that.
that's like a back door people don't think about because
hmm One of the main things we get hit with a lot, one of my last organizations was crypto mining. So what happens with crypto mining is that they'll attack the front page of a website, of a legitimate website. Let's say you had, the blackbraintrust.com, and we were doing business on there. In the middle of the night, they'll compromise that page and use the resources that page might be, obviously it's for entry purposes. We're not paying attention to that because it's just the front page, but the reality is there's resources, there's CPU usage, there's RAM, there's disk storage, right? Just enough. they'll leverage that front page to use for crypto mining. So it's only one page, and to some people that doesn't seem like a lot, but if you do that to 1,000 different websites, you just got yourself a mass. You just basically got yourself an ant farm.
Yeah, I now that I heard, like schools, libraries, things,
Hmm.
places of those nature was getting hit with those mining
Hmm.
operations.
Hmm.
Quick
But now
question.
they're getting more. Hmm.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
sorry.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Quick question. That is that not a misallocation of funds? Like, do they not have policies in place? Because aren't certain departments only supposed to have money allotted to spend on certain things?
Different organizations run their budgets differently. So maybe your marketing department has their own $1 million budget, right? So maybe they may need access to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter and things like that. So they may spend money on API connections and stuff like that to get their keep their line of business going. Whereas for us, we only have a certain amount, right? In IT, we only have a certain amount of budget available. So if we only have a budget of $20 million, it sounds like a lot, but that's a lot of that stuff gets spent on operations. So we may not have they may not have to go through us because they have their own budget. So they already made the purchase. The problem is if you if we don't know that you bought it, there's no way for us to protect it or to verify it.
Yeah, no, I was just stating from a point because like if it all goes down, aren't you guys gonna be at first fault even though you had no idea what was going on?
We're always at fault. We're the scapegoats.
Copy that.
Hmm. All right, let me get to this next article. All right, this next one is from Tech Radar. Overcoming roadblocks to IT transformation. IT teams today are faced with two equally challenging strategic transformation missions. On the one hand, they are charged with spearheading digital initiatives that will drive business growth, efficiency, and competitive advantage. On the other, they must execute IT modernization projects to keep pace with technology changes that have upended both the infrastructure and the management of the data center. Progress can be progress can be slow on both fronts. Despite the pressure to optimize IT operations in the face of escalating business demands. For example, a recent IDG research survey commissioned by Insight Enterprises Cloud and plus Data Center Division revealed that 44% of organizations planning to undertake digital transformation projects have not yet made process, operational, and or technology modifications to the IT environment. One third of those have not even begun discussing strategy. The two the other two thirds have started the conversation but taken no action, leaving organizations stuck at first base in their IT transformation journey. The survey of 200 IT executives at companies with a median of 66,250 employees also identified a variety of reasons for the delays in IT modernization. Among the legacy infrastructure, among the findings, legacy infrastructure is a major roadblock. 64% cited outdated legacy infrastructure or tools among the top five factors hampering IT modernization efforts. 59% named technology silos, another legacy issue. Also, ranking in the top five were data privacy security issues, budget, and too many competing priorities. Cloud strategy is difficult to execute. Major hurdles specified by respondents include determining which workloads should move to the cloud, choosing cloud deployment models, the lack of tools to support and monitor cloud applications, and changing the IT mindset to a cloud centric approach. I'm not going to read too much into this. But to take away from this is that many companies are confused about which direction to go because there's so a plethora of applications and tools and services available that they can't really narrow it down because they're indecisive. Once you have too many options, you become indecisive, and that's just a human issue. But it's also a business issue as well. When you're in IT, you got to kind of narrow it down on what are your goals, what are you working with now, what do you hope to be working with, how much money do you have? Because I know organizations that have uh, big budgets, 50, $60 million, and they bought all of these tools, they bought all these applications, they bought all of this stuff, and they don't have enough manpower to actually drive it. So a part of the IT transformation is that you need human capital and human resources to actually drive your project. And if you don't have it, your project can't go anywhere anyways, unless you outsource it. But that's where this is where the jobs come in. So having that skill set of understanding digital transformation is very beneficial for 2019 because every company is moving for legacy right now up to the cloud, up to the next emerging technology between now and 2022. So that's where a lot of jobs are going to come from. You're going to see a whole lot of contracts, 6 months, 9 months, 12-month contracts come out. That's going to pay big bucks, for to be involved in some of these digital transformations. It looks good on your resume too. So keep it techie. What's going on, bro?
What's going on, Mike? What's up going on, panel? How y'all doing?
What's going on? How you doing?
All right.
Good,
How are
good,
you?
good, good. You have anything you want to add to this?
Nah, you hit everything on the head.
Mm-hmm.
Not this one.
All right. All right.
Hold on. Hey, Mr. Mike, I got a question for you.
Go right ahead, brother.
It's a little off topic, but it kind of refers to what we were talking about the other day as far as what was it? Apple switching over and like starting to develop their own cloud. And I was asking you, wouldn't that mean more jobs if they're going to need to, start up these data centers so they can develop their own infrastructure for the cloud? Like, wouldn't that be a scenario of providing more jobs because they're going to need more people to run that operation?
Well, not for Apple. Apple has their own, cloud transformation teams and DevOps and all that stuff. They have their own. It's just a matter of spinning up the hardware. And once the hardware has already been spun up, that transformation has been completed. So the reason why they use AWS is because they just didn't have the infrastructure, and they probably, they probably really don't need it for the most part. They only need, AWS for right now until they get their data centers up and going. But for all intents and purposes, those are very what we call LTE, limited term employment. Those are very limited opportunities, and they usually outsource those jobs to maybe partner companies like like Infosys or Infor or some of these other organizations. No, but it doesn't mean that you can't find a job at Apple. It's just more of a that's a very niche factor case.
Copy.
Yep. All right, this one is from CIO.com. Is all in on the cloud a real strategy? Capital One has committed to moving everything to the cloud, but is it even possible to go all in on the cloud? And in the end, is it worth the trouble? The scene opens with blue-gray drabness and cold columns typical of a old-school bank. A man walks through the scene lamenting fees and minimums as he grabs one of the columns and topples them with one hard push. They They tumble down to reveal the colorful and modern inside of a new Capital One cafe, complete with coffee bar and comfy chairs, where he explains, this isn't a typical bank. This is a bank reimagined. It's a great ad and unmistakably break from the way most banks approach retail banking. even as most of them attempt to adapt to modern sensibilities. A crucial part of realizing this new banking vision, according to the company's CIO, for retail and direct banking, is going all in on the cloud. Our main focus is to provide the best experience for our customers, explained Gil Haas, Senior Vice President, Retail and Direct Bank, CIO and Technology Delivery Transformation for Capital One. What a title. We want our customers to live the life they imagine. And in order to do that, we have to spend as much time as possible on the user experience. And as Haas and Capital One see it, that means committing to move everything to the cloud. As I sat down with Haas last year, Amazon's Web Services reInvent customer conference, I wanted to understand the bet they were making, if it was even possible to go all in on cloud, and in the end, if it was worth the trouble. The World Series of Poker and its tournaments of mostly Texas Hold'em poker games has become a phenomenon. I'm not going to read all of this. I'm not going to read all of this, but the question is, can you go all in on cloud? And the answer is yes. It is absolutely possible to go all in on cloud. There are many companies that operate 100% in the cloud every day. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because we talk about digital transformation. The cloud is a major piece in this transformation. That's why it's important, to get ahead of the transition now. Don't just settle, for Best Buy Geek Squad. You got to get ahead and be a part of the transformation that's happening for most companies. Most companies can't move forward unless they have the human capital and human resources to do it. And I think these are great opportunities for us to be really looking at. Right now, I'm in the middle of transition too. Helping my organization actually transition to 100% cloud right now. We're only 1/3 in for the most part. Maybe we're about 1/3 in, but for all intents and purposes, the goal is to actually transition 100% to the cloud. So, keep it tech. You have anything you add to this?
I just want to point out, basically just what you said. I work for a company and they were pushing everything to the cloud as well. It's just that's the future. All applications are really on the cloud and being moved to the cloud. Like for instance, I managed Oracle Hyperion server it basically ran on a Microsoft server, but they wanted to migrate that to the cloud, and I was part of a team that migrated that whole thing to the cloud. So basically everything you said is correct.
Mm-hmm. I know.
I have nothing.
Okay, Mr. Sean.
Oh no, you hit all the points. Nothing for me.
All right. All right, next article is from TechCrunch.com. A new era for enterprise IT. Amidst the newly minted scooter unicorns, ebbs and flows of Bitcoin investments, and wagers on the price of Uber's IPO, another trend has shaken up the tech industry. The explosion of enterprise software successes. Bessemer notes that today there are 55 private companies valued at $1 billion or more compared to zero a decade ago, proving this isn't just private market hype. Enterprise cloud companies have well exceeded $500 billion in market cap and are on a path to hit $1 trillion in the next few years. Whether it's the masterfully executed IPOs of Zoom and PagerDuty, the imminent Slack IPO, or the mega funding rounds of companies like Asana, Airtable, Front, and many others, the insatiable demand for enterprise cloud deals shows that the new era of IT is no longer a zero-sum game. Back when we started Box in 2005, we saw a disruption on the horizon that would change enterprise software as we knew it, led by the same trends that were impacting the consumer internet. Growth of mobile, faster web browsers, more users connected online, combined with the advent of the cloud, enterprises in every industry are forced to transform in the digital age. But we could barely have imagined the scale of the change to come. Today, enterprise software market doesn't look like the enterprise software of the past. For one, the market is much larger. Deploying software in the on-prem world required a team of highly trained professionals and a hefty budget. By lowering costs and removing adoption hurdles, the cloud expanded the market from millions to billions of people globally, and in turn, businesses are using more apps than ever before. In fact, Okta found in their latest business at work report that that large enterprises are deploying 129 apps on average. This is very true. I agree with this. It's therefore no surprise that software spend is or software spend should be is expected to reach more than $420 billion in 2019 as the shift to the cloud marches on. With a market that of that magnitude, enterprise IT no longer can be controlled by just a handful of vendors, as we saw in the 90s. And what were once solved problems in a prior era of IT are now unsolved relative to the rapidly changing user and buyer expectations to the cloud, leaving the door open for new disruptors to emerge and solve the problem better, faster, and with more focused visions. Previously, pesky problems like alerting ops teams to technical issues have turned into an entire platform for real-time operations, leading to pager duties, $3 billion valuation in the process. Everyone thought video conferencing was a tired market, but Zoom proved that with extreme focus and simple user experience, its team could build a company worth over $15 billion. Atlassian has generated $25 billion in value by building a portfolio of modern development and IT tools that power a digital enterprise. I just want to stop there because it it's really touching on what we've been talking about earlier. Is that big portion of digital transformation is cloud. They mentioned Okta did their report and they found that a lot of companies have at least 129 applications. That's just what they know. They don't even know the applications that are a part of quote unquote shadow IT that are being installed without the know-how or the oversight of IT. So what I'm saying here is that there is a major shift happening that has never been seen before. It's very democratized. So you guys have anything you want to add to that? All right, I guess not. Hey, what's going on, Christian? Um,
Hey, quick question for you, Mike, before you move on.
Go ahead.
Um, like who owns Okta? Is that a Microsoft application or like who actually owns that?
No, Okta is Okta. Okta is a their own company.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
Because I mean,
I think Okta.
I've seen it tied to, I mean, like right now I'm doing like tech support with a couple companies and Okta is on everything. And that's how all the users access all their applications. No matter what application it is, you can add everything to Okta. I just didn't know if that was um, because I've seen the login page look like a Office 365 page. That's the only reason I was asking this question.
Well, Okta, I forget the guy's name. We covered it in one of our articles a few months ago on the Space and Technology Hangout. But Okta was actually founded by a guy who used to work for SAP, I think, either SAP or Oracle or something to that effect. He came out of Silicon Valley. He used to work for the big Fortune 500s in tech, and he wanted a simplistic approach to authentication from a security standpoint, and Okta was born out of that. So worth a lot of money now, and it didn't cost a whole lot of money to start it. So
Okay.
all right,
I didn't mean for you to switch up.
no, that's fine. That's
You
fine.
were doing-
That's fine.
Okay.
All right, next one is from ZDNet.com. The top cloud providers of 2018, how AWS, Microsoft, Google, IBM, Oracle, Alibaba stack up. Choosing the right public cloud provider is becoming an increasingly nuanced decision that goes well beyond scale. We all know in the large cloud players, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, GCP, IBM Cloud, and Microsoft Azure, but stacking them up depends on the enterprise's needs. Here's a crack at stacking up the cloud providers and how Oracle and Alibaba are edging into the game based on annual run rates. First, a few things to note. The list of the public cloud providers revolves around the service providers that offer software platform and infrastructure as a service offerings. There are many more cloud providers that specialize in some part of the enterprise software stack. Increasingly, companies will combine the large public providers along with a specialist. In other words, Salesforce has partnerships with Amazon Web Services, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, GCP, and works with IBM too. Workday and IBM are closely linked on many fronts. Among the largest public cloud players, the disclosure and transparency into products, financials, and pricing is better than ever. With the reality in mind, here's a look at the large public cloud players based on public comments, earnings reports, and Right Scale 2018. I'm not going to go too much into this, but I'm going to focus on the graphs and the numbers. So annual revenue run rates, Microsoft is edging out AWS, IBM, Oracle, GCP, and Alibaba. So 21 million at the top and 2.2 billion at the bottom. It shows that Microsoft is determined to take the market to themselves. And what we're looking at here is enterprise public cloud adoption between 2018 versus 2017. So for 2018, AWS, obviously the leader, and Azure, which is Microsoft, is coming up right behind them, not too far behind. Big differences between 2017 and 2018 for AWS and Azure. You see the growth is a lot larger for Microsoft than it is for AWS, but that's because, like the previous articles we read before, Microsoft is having a tough time, or not Microsoft, but companies are having a tough time with digital transformation because there's too many options and they're indecisive, and there's also a lack of human capital and human resources involved in this to make it move forward. Google is not that large of a player. Many companies don't trust Google. They just don't see Google as an enterprise player, so that's why their percentages are very low. IBM has a hard time breaking in, which is why they acquired Red Hat to begin with. Red Hat is very good at cloud deployments and cloud management. So, and then you have VMware, and then Oracle Cloud and Alibaba. Oracle's a joke in this market compared to their on-prem stuff. Keep It Techie just talked about, Oracle Hyperion. He worked on a digital transformation project for that, but there's so much bureaucratic red tape you have to go through with Oracle to get something done. It almost makes it not worth it. So that's why their growth is so low. And then in this chart right here, you have enterprise public cloud adoption and what companies are adopting which platform. And as we see right here, a lot of companies are moving up with Azure and AWS. Google Cloud is still falling behind. IBM struggling. VMware not too much traction. Oracle and Alibaba are way behind, but that's to be noted. But the main players right here is Azure and AWS. And then this last one is to look at the number of VMs, virtual machines in the cloud. Here's a new one right here, which is OpenStack. OpenStack typically isn't listed, but OpenStack right now is listed because it's so cheap. Because it's you can download it, it's free, and you can actually spin up a lot of services with it if you have the hardware to do so. But you see a lot of the adoption is happening between AWS and Azure for VMs in the cloud because the infrastructure is already up and going. So, and then CloudStack. CloudStack is actually Apache, so you can actually download that for free and spin up your own cloud. Anyways, that's just an overview of what's happening for fourth quarter of 2018. It's 2019 right now, but a lot of those numbers are very relevant to what's going on for this year as well, because a lot
Your mic went out,
in order
Mike.
to know which direction you need to go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you just came back in.
Oh man, my connection dropped. What was the last thing you heard that I said?
I don't even want to misquote you. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Quick question though, Mr. Mike.
Go ahead.
What do you, in your opinion, what is, because Amazon has such a leg up in the race, what is it that Azure and Microsoft are doing that is helping them catch up and ultimately giving them a little bit more profit?
Software as a service. So Office 365 makes up a large portion of Microsoft's cloud adoption because many companies went from Exchange to Office 365. That was their major transition. So a lot of these other companies still have Windows 2012 servers, Windows 2016 servers. I even know some companies still run in 2008 because there's probably some legacy application on there they can't get rid of, and they don't really want to bother it because if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. Those companies are looking to Microsoft's Azure to be mature enough so that they can make that cloud transition from on-prem to cloud, right? AWS doesn't really offer that because they don't own Microsoft Office. They don't own Microsoft Exchange. They just have infrastructure as a service, which is where their bread and butter really comes from. And then they have platform as a service, and that's just about it for them. And now they have function as a service, which is microservices. Amazon is always going to be pretty dominant in that area, but when it comes to Microsoft, that software as a service, that complete transition of infrastructure as a service is going to be key for them. So if you're a Microsoft shop and you already have Windows Exchange, Active Directory, that's really complicated to move to the cloud for Amazon. But if you're going to Microsoft for Azure, this is almost simplistic. It's really just a few clicks in the mouse, and that thing's going to transition. It may take some time, but it's going to transition. So that's where Microsoft is getting a lot of its adoption from, and that's where Amazon is losing because they don't really have control over that area of the market.
I got you. That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Keep it tech. You have anything you want to add to this?
Oh no, I was just gonna add on to what you just said. Really, Active Directory and all the services that they provide, nobody else can offer it. And most companies since the '90s have been using all Microsoft services, and so that's what's helping them keep up with it. Um, because I mean, most companies I've worked for, Active Directory, they have an Active Directory server that manages all the accounts for all the users within their network. And so, I mean, just piggybacking off of what you said, Mike. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
No, it's always good to have your input too. So.
For sure.
All right, this next one is from CNBC.com. Amazon Web Services revenue grew 41% in the first quarter. Amazon Web Services reported revenue growth of 41% on Thursday as the cloud computing division continues to provide substantial profit for its parent company. Sales at AWS rose $7.7 billion from $5.44 billion a year earlier, beating the $7.69 billion average analysts estimated. According to the fact set, AWS revenue represented 13% of the total sales at Amazon, up from 10% in the fourth quarter. AWS remains the dominant provider of cloud servers and storage to businesses looking to offload their data center infrastructure. But Microsoft Azure is rapidly becoming a strong competitor and is winning notable deals, particularly in retail. Microsoft said on Wednesday that Azure revenue surged 73% in the last quarter, helping the company top analyst estimates for profit and sales. This is what we just mentioned a few seconds ago. Microsoft is becoming a strong contender in these areas, and Amazon is not really going to be able to keep up with that. It's just one of those things. Not saying that Amazon is a bad company; they're just not able to compete in this area in the same way Microsoft does. Microsoft and AWS are in the last stages of competing for a $10 billion Department of Defense contract known as JEDI, and after IBM and Oracle were recently ruled out. Operating income for AWS in the quarter was $2.2 billion. The unit accounted for about 50% of Amazon's overall operating income. AWS operating margin was 29%, similar to the prior quarter. Amazon doesn't provide contributions from specific customers, but some of those numbers have been made public of late, thanks to IPO filings from big spenders and documents that have been obtained by the press. Ride-hailing company Lyft said its perspective that it's committed to spending at least $300 million on AWS over the 3 years, from the beginning of 2019 through 2021. And that's kind of what I was saying before, that digital transformation is going to happen now, between now and 2022. So it's right on the money with what I was talking about before. But that's where Amazon is right now. They're still competitive. It's just one of those things. You just got to diversify your portfolio and your cloud strategy. All right, this next one is from TechCrunch.com. Microsoft beats expectations with $30.6 billion in revenue as Azure's growth continues. Microsoft reported its quarterly earnings for Q3 2019 today. Should be Q2. Overall, Wall Street expected earnings of about $1 per share and revenue of $29.84 billion. The company handedly beat this with revenue of $30.6 billion, up 14% from the year ago quarter, and earnings per share of $1.14. With Microsoft focusing heavily on its cloud business, with both Azure and its other cloud-based services, it's no surprise that this is that this is also what Wall Street really cares about. The expectation here, according to some analysts, was that the company's overall commercial cloud business would hit a run rate of about $38.5 billion. Those analysts uh, were off by only a tiny bit. Microsoft today reported that its commercial cloud run rate hit $38.4 billion. And indeed, Microsoft Azure had a pretty good quarter with revenue growing 73%. That's a bit lower than last quarter's results, but only by a fraction, and it shows that there is plenty of growth left left for Microsoft Cloud infrastructure business, which is what I was mentioning before. That's where Microsoft is going to make their bread and butter in the infrastructure as a service area, IaaS. Azure's growth slowed somewhat in recent quarters. In some ways, that's to be expected, though. Microsoft Cloud is now a massive business, and posting 100% growth when you have a run rate of almost $40 billion becomes a bit harder. I'm not going to read all of this, but this is kind of, beating the drum that I was saying earlier that two titans of AWS and Microsoft is going to is proving the point that the big transition from on-prem to cloud is happening right now. You gentlemen have anything you want to add to this?
So Microsoft has the software as a service, and now they're gonna jump into the infrastructure as a service and take some more away from Amazon.
Yeah. Microsoft and Amazon, in terms of the stack, they've always had infrastructure as a service as part of their portfolio. The only difference here is that Microsoft still has platform as a service as well. So the platform as a service would be Azure, or would be Active Directory, right? It would be Exchange. It would be SharePoint. It would be a lot of those other platforms that they've supported in the past have now been transitioned into the cloud, into their Azure cloud. Whereas AWS, a lot of their bread and butter, like the article was saying, comes out of that infrastructure as a service. No need for a data center anymore, no need for real estate anymore. So a lot of companies are just saying, well, that server is going to be end of life, EOL. So let's make sure we spin up some services with Amazon, and let's transition, that old platform to the AWS, and Amazon makes a whole lot of money out of that. One company I used to work for a couple of years ago, they didn't keep track of their billing for AWS, and they spent up to $1 million, and no one even knew it. The bosses didn't know about it. Mr. Christian, what's going on, brother?
How is everybody doing?
All right.
Good.
Yeah, they spent up to $1 million, and nobody even knew it. No one kept track of the billing, and that happens in cloud deployments all the time, in cloud management all the time. There's no real way to manage the metering of services. So that's actually a job now. There's actually people that they hire just to track the billing usage of cloud performance and cloud usage. So.
No, I got you. It just seems like Microsoft is like more of a one-stop shop. They can get a lot done, where it kind of seems where AWS is kind of like one-dimensional. That's all I was getting at.
But well, AWS is multi-dimensional. They just lack the services that most companies need. Every company is practically running on Windows, 90%. So for their desktops and their Active Directory servers. Now, AWS does offer something called workspaces. Workspaces is basically virtualization of Windows desktops for your business. So you don't have to have a Windows-based laptop. You can run a MacBook, you can run a Chromebook, and they can deliver those Windows services to you. But it comes at a price, and it's not the best performance either. So Microsoft is actually working on an alternative solution to that, where they have desktop as a service as well, which is another um, service that they're going to provide that's going to be very dominant in the cloud. So let me jump to the
But
next
is
one.
it? But isn't that just like the virtual desktops that I mean I've seen virtual
It,
desktops. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, it is. No, it is virtual desktops. It's just as a service though. A lot of companies like VMware does have virtualization, but they don't have virtualization as a service as of yet, right? It hasn't been completed
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
Um, right? Citrix has it too, right? Citrix has the Zen, what was called Zen server before. I forget what the new name is now.
No,
Um,
it's still Zen.
you can basically, it's still Zen.
Still Zen. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of companies used to use Citrix for that very reason, where they can deliver Windows or through virtualization, and it actually worked pretty good. But if you're trying to make that Windows 10s transition for your enterprise, you probably won't go with Citrix now. You might just go with Microsoft.
Gotcha.
Yep. All right, this next one is from SDXCentral.com. Dell EMC Big Switch take on Cisco with open networking deal. Big Switch Networks inked an original equipment manufacturing OEM agreement with Dell EMC for Big Switch's SDN products. The two companies already partnered on Dell EMC's open network product line, and the new OEM agreement aims to deepen that collaboration while taking market share from proprietary vendors like Cisco and Arista. Open networking revenue is expected to reach $1.35 billion by 2023, with a compound annual growth rate of 33% between 2019 and 2023. That goes back to my statement that I made earlier about that big digital transition, 2019 and 2022. This is what it's talking about. Open networking, when you look at the market, is obviously the fastest growing part of networking, said Douglas Murray, president and CEO of Big Switch Networks, adding that his company is growing at a rate of 80% to 100% annually. I believe this continues to be quite eye-opening for incumbents, seeing that this is really starting to take hold in the market. Big Switch and Dell EMC first teamed up in 2014. In the early days of Dell EMC position open networking as a category they were trying to promote, Murray said, we were one of the early adopters of that. Big Switch's SDN based products support around 100 switch platforms. The software only company calls these products its first cloud networking portfolio because they aim to bring the best of public cloud elasticity, speed, and cost savings to customers, data centers, and then also extend these same networking and monitoring tools across hybrid cloud environments. So um, this is actually really interesting stuff because software defined networking is what's driving the cloud right now. A lot of your data centers that like AWS and all that stuff actually use SDN, and a lot of your ISPs actually use SDN now too. So um, traditional networking is not going to be the same. You won't just be plugging in a cable into a a router and a switch anymore. It's going to be something completely different. Any of you gentlemen have anything you want to add to that?
I've got nothing that I want to add
All
on
right.
to it.
Nah, not at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they're switching over and the whole networking process is gonna, it's gonna change along with the times, when would you expect people like Cisco or these other people to start, I guess developing new training to get people accustomed to this new era of networking?
That's really dependent on the user or the technician himself. it's like anything else. If you don't keep up with the market, man, you're gonna get left behind, right? So you got to go out there and study. I mean, there's a lot of open user groups for SDNs. I used to follow a certain group. I can't remember the name off the top of my head now. Back in 2012, called Open vSwitch. I think that's the name of it. At least at the time, that was the name of it, Open vSwitch. So basically, you can take an HP ProLiant server and basically turn it into a switch and have it run just as robust as any other Cisco or any other switch from another big brand like Juniper, and it was very cost efficient. And it had a lot of because what SDN offers is granulation, so you can basically manage a switch all the way down to the packet level, which is something that hasn't been seen before. So you can add policies and so on and so forth, and segment things that in a way that hasn't been done on traditional switches. So that's why there's such a big shift now, because in order for you to adopt all of these new devices and cloud deployments and things like that, you're going to need software-defined networking. Traditional networking isn't going to work anymore. It doesn't scale very well. All right, next one is from techrepublic.com. Azure Sentinel, Microsoft's thoroughly modern SIEM. That's security incident event management system. As infrastructure gets ever complex, managing security becomes a significant issue. Alerts and logs are coming from many different systems in as many different formats, and it's important that the right information is delivered to the right person in order to make the right decision to prevent a security breach. The right time information model is critical, and it needs tooling that can bring all these information sources and events into one place. Security information and event management, SIEM, is a rapidly growing part of the enterprise security market, building and delivering smart security dashboards that analyze and prioritize these messages using a mix of log file analysis and machine learning. In a complex threat environment, modern data centers need a SIEM to operate effectively, sat next to your application and network monitoring tools, and helping manage your response to incidents and warnings. However, there's a problem when it comes to cloud infrastructures. You may not have full visibility into all the elements of your environment, especially if you're building on top of service and platform elements. Someone has the information that needs to be secure, that needed to secure your applications, but in many cases that isn't you. It doesn't even. Sorry, it's someone in the hyperscale cloud's networks operations center. Introducing Azure Sentinel. Microsoft recently launched Azure Sentinel, its approach to modern SIEM working across on-premises, and in cloud infrastructures. It is intended to be easy to set up, low maintenance, and easy to use. By building on cloud scale data collection and on Microsoft's own threat detection tools, Azure Sentinel can automate response using orchestration across your entire estate. It's software as a service, so it's scalable, and you only pay for the resources you use. This is actually really good. Primarily because if you, I work in cybersecurity, so I'm just want to make this point. Many companies buy a whole lot of cybersecurity tools, and they have no clue about what they're doing. And the SIEM is a large portion of your security. And what happens is, it becomes too cumbersome and it gets out of whack. And next thing you know, you need some kind of managed service provider to come in and do it for you, or you need some kind of expert to come in and do it for you. What Microsoft is trying to do is to make this more as simplistic as possible. Just like how you would use Microsoft Office, they're trying to turn cybersecurity into that very same thing. So, and that's a part of their Azure portfolio, right? So Azure Sentinel is a part of their Azure portfolio, which is another step in the right direction for Microsoft.
depending on how much you got out there on your Azure service, that would help out a lot. If you had your SQL database out there and your Exchange, which is probably like their two most exported service that they have, that'll help out a lot. I can't remember how many other viruses and whatnot attack databases or go through your mail
SQL
system at
injection.
the company. Yeah. So if you go ahead and add onto that service with everything else that you got with Azure, yeah, that'll help out a lot.
Because it's a part of your portfolio now, right? So if you're an Azure customer, you're getting another Azure service. You have Office 365, you have SharePoint, you have AD, and you have probably some other form of desktop as a service or something to that effect that's coming down the pike. You add Azure into it as a part of your security portfolio. This is a game changer. A lot of companies are getting away from traditional antivirus protection and they're moving to Windows Defender because it's just that good. And you have all your logs inside Sentinel, inside your SIM. Why not? It's a Microsoft product. You trust Microsoft, go with the Microsoft product.
And the way Defender integrates with its operating system, it works without a problem. Most of the other antiviruses like eat up your RAM or eat up your processor. You have to worry about
Well, they're
that.
also not effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're also not effective because their signatures are either out of date or not, or your next generation threat is coming through a different vector. So that antivirus isn't going to be all that useful.
And now you're going to take it Defender into an enterprise level? Yeah, I see nothing but win for this for Microsoft.
That's what we do. That's what we do right now. We get signature updates probably about every day, and it updates in the background.
Okay. Do you know how many intervals
Yeah.
you have on? 30 minutes, 15 minutes?
It's probably every 4 hours.
Okay.
It's probably every 4 hours. I don't think you can set it for the minute interval from the enterprise standpoint, mostly because those devices have scheduled run times for like system updates. So they may only communicate out once every 4 hours in the workday. So then if you come in at 8 o'clock, it's gonna do that it's gonna update probably about 11 o'clock, and then by the time you're ready to leave to go home, for if you're a user, it may update again by 4 o'clock. So before you even leave the office, you have another update available.
Okay.
Jack Charles in the chat says, so Norton is obsolete now. Good luck with that, buddy.
When I was running my antivirus, I don't want to say farm, but when I was running antivirus for one of my other companies, I had to go out there like every hour, check to see if there was another signature, just in case, because I was paranoid like that.
You didn't have a console?
Yeah.
A console you can push the updates down to?
Oh yeah, but I just had to like go out and check every hour just to see if I need something pushed out.
You said Norton's or Symantec?
I was running Symantec a long time ago. Then I dumped them because they were eating up my processors on all my workstations, and I switched over to. It wasn't Panda Antivirus. It was a German company.
Avast?
No, it wasn't Avast. Can't remember their name now, but it was a German company.
Oh, Kaspersky.
No, not them. Not them. They were too aggressive. No, not them. I tested out with them, and it wouldn't even let the president like open up pictures on the internet. All right, this is the article I was looking at. Ready.
All right. This next one is from nextplatform.com. Why single socket servers could rule the future. Multi-socket servers have been around since the dawn of enterprise computing. The market and technology has matured into two-socket x86 and multi-core, highly integrated processors. In this price, I hope to answer some of the questions about how we landed here and what is the likely future. Large symmetric multiprocessor systems (SMP) once ruled the enterprise, much like the dinosaurs roamed the earth. This was required due to many factors. One, processor technology only allowed single core CPUs. Two, large scale networks did not exist, or at least were not economically viable. Three, applications were oriented around terminal, mainframe experience. These factors prevented the notion of out, large scale out systems and applications like we have today. As those factors changed, enterprise started to shift from large SMP machines to scale out of moderate socket counts, 2 and 4 socket predominantly. Process technology and large networks disrupted the economics and continued continue to where we are today with scale out 2 4 socket with many more CPUs. But why did we stop at 2 4 socket systems? Why have we not made the last transition to one socket systems or one socket? There have been several reasons in the past, but I'm not sure why they are valid anymore. As we made the transition from mainframes to scale out, the CPUs were a single core, and the cost economics of sharing north bridges, south bridges, and memory controllers made a ton of sense. With the dawn of multi-core and the integration of memory controllers, there was still a valid argument to share I/O devices, south bridges, PSUs, and fans, etc. But today we are entering the era of high power, highly integrated many core CPUs, and the argument to share what's left, I/O, PSU, fans, etc., is becoming very weak. In fact, it is leading to power and performance challenges. The CPUs today and moving forward are equal in power to 2 and 4 of the CPUs of the past. We are we are talking 250 watt plus CPUs with 32 cores and higher power core count in the future. This has led to the demand for more memory, more NVMs drives, and thus more power per U. Each socket has so much performance. You really should not share. You really should not share I/O between sockets. In fact, doing so negates performance. Read on. Years ago, in our high performance 2U server, the top PSU was 750 watts, and now we have a standard PSU offering of 2,400 watts. Our power per U has gone up 3 times. This is leaving racks half empty in data center hotspots. This is really geeky stuff, and I don't think we have a whole lot of time to really get into this, but I just wanted to point this out because back when I was coming up, having a dual socket system, that was
You was it, man. You was it. You got a
yeah, you
old
yeah,
PT6. You got 2 processors, man. What are you doing?
yeah, because because Xeon processors were slotted back then, and you only had so much maneuverability. So if you had that, you were big time. Now you don't even need that anymore. A single socket can have 32 cores and a few gigs of memory and a SSD. You got the power of a big 4U system inside of a 1U rack. That's unheard of. That sort of scalability hasn't really been visualized as of yet. So
Okay, I'm on Microsoft's website taking a look at the 2019 server license. I
okay,
think it's a standard. Hold up, no, okay. Data Center Standard Edition's pricing is for 16 core licenses. I think I was looking at getting a license for 2019. I think it was like the most it could handle was like 22 cores. I'm like, if I would have got a Threadripper, that would have been more power than it could hold.
Right.
So I have to buy like a data center license to be able to get like what's home customer user license. So if I
Right.
get the
And
go on.
go ahead. No, I was just going to say that back then it was really based on whether or not you had Windows Pro, Windows Server, Windows XP, or Windows 2000 Pro. Right. The more versions you went up, the more sockets you can cover. But now it's not about sockets anymore. It's going back down to cores. Right. It's going back to hyperthreading that drives a lot of the process power. So now Microsoft can't charge per socket. They have to charge per core now. So it's a slick business model for Microsoft to really try to collect revenue, collect tariffs on the high performance market.
What kills me is like Threadripper, the fastest one you can get now. I think it's like 32 cores, 64 threads. That's still quote unquote like home user equipment. That's not like the Zions processors. It's got like a whole lot more cores and more threads. We can go ahead and go to the next article. I was looking forward to this one.
Yeah, we're kind of at the end of that, anyways. But I just wanted to touch on the second piece of the docket, which is emerging markets to look out for IT. So, first item that I added was deep learning. So why did I add deep learning? Deep learning is important for artificial intelligence. It's the subsidiary category to artificial intelligence. You don't have artificial intelligence without machine learning, deep learning, and in those aspects, right? So if you can understand deep learning, you can kind of drive artificial intelligence. If you don't really have an understanding of deep learning, you're not going to be able to drive the artificial intelligence necessary for your IT environment to actually thrive. So let me share my screen so that we have an understanding of what we're talking about here. So this one is from this one is from edx.com or .org. So IBM has a program on EDX called Deep Learning, and it says, this is a hands-on program will prepare and equip you with the in-demand skills required to become a successful artificial intelligence practitioner and start a career in the growing and lucrative field of deep learning. To pursue this program is $445.50. That's about the same price as Louis Vuitton belt that you guys like to rock. So basically, this. So this one is let me get to this real quick. All right, so it says this program is intended to prepare learners and equip them with the skills required to become successful artificial intelligence practitioners and start a career in applied deep learning. What you'll learn is fundamental concepts of deep learning, including various neural networks for supervised and unsupervised learning, use of popular deep learning libraries such as Keras, PyTorch, and TensorFlow applied to industry problems, build, train, and deploy different types of deep architectures, including convolutional networks, recurrent networks, and autoencoders, application of deep learning to real-world scenarios such as object recognition and computer vision, image and video processing, text analytics, natural language processing, NLP, recommender systems, and other types of classifiers. Master deep learning at scale with accelerated hardware and GPUs. So this is self-paced. You kind of do this on your own time. Deep learning fundamentals with Keras, deep learning with Python and PyTorch, or Torch. Deep learning with TensorFlow, using GPUs to scale and speed up deep learning. So you can leverage NVIDIA graphics cards or AMD graphics cards. Apply deep learning capstone. So that's your final project. $445, and it requires 5 to 6 weeks per course. 5 courses in the program. You actually get a legitimate certificate from IBM. You can't go wrong with that. No one's ever been fired for IBM in the industry. At least that's the rule. And then I'll add this in as well because I think this is important too. We covered this in the past, but maybe a month or so ago. But NVIDIA's Jetson Nano. This is used for testing AI in machine learning and deep learning networks or deep learning programming. So basically, you can use this cheap SBC, which is a single board computer, to actually develop modern artificial intelligence platforms. And that program that I mentioned before actually would go well with this sort of product. So you can pass that. If you buy this with that sort of platform, that program, you're talking about maybe a little over $500 into that program, and you can do a heck of a lot. $500 turns into jobs that are paying 125 grand right now. Entry level jobs are paying up to 125 grand.
I'll seriously think about getting one of those Jets and Nanos.
Yeah, I think it's cool just to have it. I think it's cool just to have it. I'm not exaggerating about what the average salary is. Right here on the page, it says average salary is for machine learning engineers $136,054. That's coming from Indeed.com. So that's not me making this up. That's these guys telling you the real deal. All right, let me get to this next one. The next one I added to the docket was big data. I think traditional database administrators have not kept up with times. And now that you have cloud computing, you also have a big data environment. So let me share my screen again. It's this one is from EDX. So Microsoft actually has a pretty good platform on EDX for many other areas of technology, but in this instance, it will be big data. All right, so it says what you'll learn: analyze and visualize data, work with NoSQL data, query relational data, implement a data warehouse, process a big data at rest, process big data in motion, and orchestrate big data workflows, and build big data analysis solutions. Big data matters because a lot of these IoT devices and new laptops or not new laptops, but tablets and phones and watches and stuff like that all collect data or generate data, and then all that data has to be collected into what we call a data lake. That data lake now has to be parsed out, and that's where machine learning comes in. Machine learning is about algorithms that parse out data to make sense of it. This is where big data, this big data program comes in. So you're basically the next level of database administration, and they have so there's 4 programs that or 4 units that go with this this program. You have data fundamentals, and then you have big data processing, and then big data analysis solutions, and then capstone, right? and then there's several courses that are within this the syllabus, for this program that are a part of each unit. So there's 15 courses that requires at least 12 to 30 hours per course. $99 per course. I believe the program is about $1,000 or something like that, if I remember correctly.
Looks like 1,500. But still, compared with how much?
I think it's discounted though.
Okay.
I think it's discounted if you buy all of them at once or something like that.
Still,
And just a point,
and it's accredited.
shit. Hell yeah.
Go ahead.
no, and just to point it out, I'm not sure if that one falls under that, but you can apply for assistance if you make under like 30, I think it's 30 grand when I was looking into it. You can apply for assistance and they'll give you like 90% off of the price. I'm not sure if that one falls under that, but I know other programs, they do have assistance with on this platform, edX, in order for you to apply for assistance. So
that's good. That's good to know. You can say something, Christian.
I was just saying that, like, even if you don't get a discount, still $1,500 to get all those courses, and how much money you can make after completing the course. That's a no-brainer right there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this next one is on the docket was full stack developer. The reason why I put full stack developer on there is because this is like a really hot topic now, at least in the U.S. A lot of your web application development is now starting to include web application for mobile, web application for other places, and leveraging this sort of full stack developer or full stack engineering has become more crucial because of the advent of web-based applications. Your banking, just about any company that has a mobile app is now a tech company. So that's the direction that they're going into, and they can't find enough developers. But if you look at this page, the full stack developer bootcamp is $10.99. That's less than the pack of Newports. You really can't argue with that. Whether or not it's a good course, I don't know. It has 4 stars. It's $10.99. It's less than the Black and Mild or packing Black and Milds. Or gosh, or Vegas, or whatever it is that you like to pull on. And then it says, what will you learn? What you'll learn. Build full stack JavaScript websites and applications. Gain an understanding on how to turn your ideas into reality through knowledge of various languages. How to use the command line. Work on web with making websites with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, etc. How to use Git. It's 8.5 hours, 75 lectures. One coding exercise, and a certificate of completion plus assignments. The requirements: there are no prerequisites for this course. This course is aimed at ensuring students of all knowledge levels can take advantage of it thoroughly. And it ends in 3 hours at this price. So it's marked down from $199, 94% off. I know guys who put, $100 inside somebody's super chat about Weave. I'm sorry. This is a better investment. Trust me. Can't beat that. Any of you guys on the panel have anything you want to add to this?
Nah, I got it in my shopping cart now.
Mhm. Oh, you would have it in your shopping cart. All right, next one is DevOps. Basically DevOps. And the reason why I threw this on there is because DevOps is a methodology for um, software software development. So basically, DevOps is people, process, and technology taking repeatable processes and making it and automating that processing. So basically, the same steps that you would do day in day out, you're gonna automate it. And you're gonna do it in a way that is sufficient for any business. And the item here from ADX is basically from Linux Foundation. Linux Foundation is a reputable place for getting certifications and learning anything open source. So they have a course called Introduction to DevOps, Transforming and Improving Operations. Learn how to transform your organization using the principles and practices of DevOps. Again, DevOps is a methodology that most organizations have either adopt or planning to adopt. I don't know any organization that does not um, have any interest in this. You really can't certify in DevOps because it's a methodology, but you can learn the processes, and I think that learning the processes is actually more important than actually certifying. So that's why I threw this on here. And it says what you'll learn, explain the needs to do DevOps, understanding the DevOps foundations, principles, and practices, understand, analyze, and map value streams, explain and implement the deployment pipeline, illustrate the concept of continuous delivery, create a problem-solving culture, explain the concepts of blameless um, postmortems, monitor meaningful infrastructure and business metrics, and converge change management and DevOps. Understand how resilience, engineering, and safety culture are critical to DevOps success. Basically, what they've done is they've taken the OSHA approach, um, for civilians, to work in certain areas of business, right? Whether it's the hard hat on the construction site or so on and so forth. They figured out a way to implement similar strategies inside software development. Before software development used to have a very long, tedious life cycle. This is typically why Microsoft used to have service packs for their Windows operating system. You had to wait a long time for a service pack. But now Microsoft has figured out the DevOps approach too. And what they do is as soon as they get an update, they just push it out. They're not waiting for a service pack. They just push the update out immediately. So you get the update, and if they did it that day and it passed all flying colors, then you're going to get that update within a few hours or a few days, as opposed to waiting for service packs for a whole year. Before Windows 2000, you had to have 4 service packs or something like that, 3 service packs. Windows XP had 2 service packs, and I think Windows 7 had 1 service pack, and then after that, Windows 8 had just updates, and then Windows 10 had just updates. So they figured it out for themselves. Josh, you know anything about DevOps?
Not much about it.
hmm
But I can't add to what you was talking about with the updates. That's something that they do in the Linux community as well. I mean, it's certain distributions they have what they call a rolling release, and
hmm
and they push out the updates. Well, you have to request them obviously, but they push out the updates as on your live system. So some of those rolling releases are not they're prone to break in certain instances depending on how quick you get the updates and the testing that it goes through, but same thing.
hmm Sean, you have anything you want to add to this?
Nope, just soaking up and learning.
All right. Christian, you have anything you want to add to this? Because I know you guys are going through transitions yourself. You guys adopting DevOps or no?
Don't think we're taking the term DevOps. Not my job I'm at now, but I am taking the Linux Academy, and I'm taking that course for it.
Okay. All right, so we're down to excuse me.
No, go on.
All right, so we're down to the top 5 certs to get for 2019, and this is my list. I actually misspelled that. It should be MCSE, but it's MSC. But it's basically Azure. I'm a big proponent of Microsoft. We read the articles that we covered. Microsoft is having rapid growth in the cloud area. So I think that Microsoft is going to be the formidable player in terms of cloud computing going forward. So let me share my screen. All right, here's the Microsoft Certified Azure Administrator Associate. So this would be like an MCSA. Azure Administrator implement, monitor, and maintain Microsoft Azure solutions, including major services related to compute, storage, network, and security. So although this retires early next week, it's being replaced by an alternative. But for the most part, infrastructure and deployment, Azure integration and security, and then you have Azure Administrator Certification Transition. It doesn't really say what Microsoft is transitioning to, but it does note that Microsoft is transitioning to a different program, if I remember correctly. So that's my first pick. And the prerequisite for that would be CompTIA's Cloud Plus. So my approach is always to get the foundational exams out the way first. I think the Cloud Plus, personally, I have Cloud Plus for a few years now, and I don't have any complaints about it. No one's ever questioned the legitimacy of it. But Cloud Plus actually focuses on configuration and deployment of a cloud platform, management, maintenance, security, and troubleshooting. That's very similar to what Microsoft is talking about. So you study the book for this, you take that exam, you get the principles out the way, and then you go on, you take that Microsoft cert. You should ace that with no problem on the first try. Josh, you have anything you add to that? Have you taken the Cloud Plus yet? Have you thought about it?
I'm thinking about going ahead and taking it.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should definitely get that. You should definitely get it. It's one of those certifications of a give me, right?
Yeah.
It's low hanging fruit. Might as well get it.
Let's get a resume too.
Yeah. It's good foundational experience. Sean, you have anything you want to add to
that? I'm more so just trying to get in and get the fundamentals down. So, because I want to get into the security field. So I'm just more so about what are the fundamentals that are really required, and then also You did a talk live. You did a talk a while back. I forgot what episode it was, but it was on the cloud and Linux. And when you mentioned Red Hat, that's what I was prompted to email you about. So I'm more so wanting to specialize in Linux, and I just want to get the foundations before I try to switch over to that Linux side and really try to master that area.
Are you saying cybersecurity in terms of Linux, or what are you saying? That you just want to learn Linux, or you want to be a master at Linux? What are you saying?
No, in terms of Linux and how it applies to security, because I know Linux is ran on a lot of the back end on the servers. So I really want to get into that
Hmm.
Linux. And you named a couple of certs on Red Hat that I was really interested in, and that's what prompted me to
Hmm.
email you. But I just wanted to get the fundamentals first. So that's really what I wanted advice from you about how to go about getting the fundamentals and then moving your way up and not skipping a step.
Okay, so stay tuned. We'll get to that in a few seconds. Um, the next cert that I wanted to jump to was AWS. Despite all my criticisms of AWS, I still think AWS cert is still relevant. They still control about 2/3 of the market. I don't see why you wouldn't want to jump into that area. It's a multi-billion-dollar market, so you can't really go wrong with AWS. And let me share my screen. So the most common AWS cert is SysOps Administrator Associate. That's very common. You have a lot of people who transitioned from Microsoft, MCSA or desktop support. They went straight to this um, because most companies who did make that transition, they first thing they went for was AWS, and they had nobody to really understand AWS. So get your AWS cert while you still can. Well, it's still relevant, I should say. Um, Exam costs $150. It's 130 minutes of exam time, multiple choice, multiple answer. You don't have to actually do any labs for that matter um, on the exam. So
You sent out a email to the group. I want to say like a month and a half ago, about getting AWS certified in 6 weeks. I got a study group together. One of the guys in the group said he's going to take his on the 10th.
hmm
And depends on how he does and how he feels after he takes the test. I'm probably going to take mine a little afterwards and try to go ahead and get that knocked out.
yeah, I think for sysadmin guys, I think it's always good to have a good balance of everything. A little bit of Linux here, a little bit of
Right.
AWS here, a little bit of Azure there, Google Cloud Platform, GCP. I think it's good to have a good robust background, more of a generalist background, rather than to be narrowly focused on okay, I only know AWS. I don't know anything about Azure. Well, guess what? Azure is coming up right now, and if you don't even have the basic understanding of Azure, you're going to screw yourself out of an opportunity down the line. So it's better to get ahead of it now while it's still emerging than to try to play catch up with it. In order for you to become AWS SysOps certified, you got to go through the Cloud Practitioner cert. You This is the foundation exam. So again, multiple choice, multiple answer, foundational, 90-minute time exam time, not like the 130 minutes before. It's $100. So it's cheaper than the SysOps certification. And there's several books on Amazon that you can go through. AWS has their own books as well. You can download the ebooks from Amazon. Not that difficult. I took this exam about a couple years ago, probably maybe a year or so ago, excuse me, and it wasn't that difficult. So I don't even work with AWS anymore, but I do have it though. So
It was mostly like their definitions, like what was
it's a
it?
literacy exam.
Yeah.
It's a literacy exam. Let me share the book as well because I think that that's relevant too. All right, so here's the book for the foundational practitioner. This is similar to the Cloud Plus. If you can pass a Cloud Plus, you can pass this as well. Both of them are roughly the same. I think you should pass both. Christian knows this. I've talked with Christian many times before about this, but I think that getting all the certs you can get is better. It's better to have the certs and not need it than to need it and not have it. That's my approach. I think that loading yourself up, especially as a black man, you gotta come loaded.
I definitely agree with that, Mike.
Hmm. Yeah, you gotta come loaded, man. You can't come half stepping up in. And that book is it's a Pearson book. I'm a big advocate for Pearson Publishing. I think their books are amazing. The quality of it, just the every chapter when you open it up, it says it asks the question, "Do you know this?" And it goes over several items that you may or may not be familiar with. And if you are familiar with it, you just skip to the next chapter. That makes studying such a breeze because a lot of times when people study, they end up studying each and every chapter, even if they do know it and don't even realize that they're wasting a lot of time.
Ditto. I like those
And
books a lot. They
there's
help
only,
me with my last certifications. I usually get the bundles that's got the ebook and the practice test. They help out a lot.
mm-hmm. Yep. The book comes with that. Yep. And ever since I got a Chromebook, a tablet, I can detach it. I can detach the tablet from the keyboard, turn it into uh, uh, um, Google ebook reader, and the quality of it is so good. Um, I buy a lot of ebooks now. I don't even buy physical books anymore. I buy books. You hear that? I'm not like some of these other guys who go to certain share sites and get it for undisclosed amounts of money.
Like was Young Grizzly said, what's a bookcase?
Yeah, yeah. His bookcase is some torrent site. So yeah, but the next certification on the docket is my recommendation is VMware. VMware is a major player in virtualization. You can't go wrong with VMware. VMware is just everybody has VMware. Some way, shape, or form they have VMware, whether it's on the desktop or it's on a server with ESXi. Um, it's just one of those things you got to have. It's like a shotgun for home protection. So let me share my screen real quick. So they just came out with the 2019 version for data center, and basically, if you don't hold any other VCP certifications, I think you should lab with it. I believe Christian Labs would have quite a bit with VMware, and if you want, you can actually take one of these training courses. Training courses are expensive. I'm not sure if your place of work would actually pay for it. I know most places do. So you can take any one of those. And then take a foundational exam. Foundational exams, like it says, 65 questions, $125. Can't beat that.
I'm not
And then you pass
certified.
one of the.
Oh, sorry. I'm not certified in VMware, but I did post up on my LinkedIn account that I was interested in finding another job, and I got offered 80,000 if I got my VMware certs.
Oh yeah. When you think about what it costs to get certified versus how much more money you're going to make,
Oh yeah.
I know guys who are VMware engineers. They're making 140 grand a year. It's nothing to them. It's a cakewalk for them. They're bored. They're sitting at work, playing League of Legends or something else on their phone, and they're just sitting back with their feet on the desk. Move the mouse around a few times, and you know, uh, add services here, take away services there, pay attention to the storage cluster, and it's nothing to them. It's a breeze. It's almost second nature for them, and they're raking in big bucks. You know, especially at hospitals. Hospitals rely on virtualization and storage capacity. So this is where they are. A lot of hospitals haven't really adopted cloud computing yet because of HIPAA and the complexity of medical applications. So
Mike, do you have
let me
your
share my screen.
do you got your CISSP?
I don't. I
Okay.
don't. I'm not a big fan of that certification. I can take it if I wanted to. I just haven't. I have my SSCP, but that's going to run out at some point. CISSP is more about best practices for a information security person, because there's a difference between information security and cybersecurity. But if you want to be a manager, if you want to be in a leadership position, get your CISSP. For what I do for cybersecurity, CISSP really doesn't cover a whole lot of that. Maybe one or two domains. That's about it. So a prerequisite for that I recommend for the VMware cert is Server Plus. And the reason why I throw Server Plus on there is if you look below, it says right here the following concepts: virtualization, storage, security, and troubleshooting. That falls right in line with the VMware or any other virtualization certification. If you can follow these principles, these literacy principles, then you're good. You're good going in. I like when I take certifications, I like to feel comfortable going in. If I feel uneasy, very anxious, it's because I'm not really familiar with the material. 9 times out of 10, you're gonna fail it. It's just not worth trying to guess your way through it. Spend $500 trying to guess your way through an exam. It's just not worth it. I think that getting the foundational principles down through these CompTIA certs or these other foundational certs makes it much easier going in, because now you feel comfortable. Once you get a victory from a foundational exam, you walk in more confident taking the next level up. If you try to go in and take a big level exam, a senior level exam like a VCP or something like that, and you're nervous, that exam's not going to go very well. You got to go in there confident every single time.
Now, if you got your A plus, your Network Plus, that Server Plus will be pretty easy.
Yeah, definitely. Josh, you have anything you want to add to that?
Oh, no, I just totally agree. The Server Plus is a great route to start before you go to that VMware cert.
Mm-hmm. Sean?
Nah, just sitting here soaking up the game.
All right. All right, this next one is on the docket is LFCS, which is Linux Foundation Certified System Admin. Basically, the Linux Foundation has come up with their own certification that is performance-based. It's not questions and answer-based. So this means it requires you to actually perform your work on a simulated box, and if you brick that box, you're kind of screwed. So you had better know your stuff going into this. It's $300. It's online, 2-hour exam, 3 years of certification is valid for 12 months of eligibility. It has 1 free retake. I don't know any other exam right now that has a free retake for you if you fail it. Failing it is probably pretty common, so that's probably why it's a free retake, because it's performance based.
Microsoft
And there's no prerequisites. Oh yeah, you're right about that. I haven't seen it on the new certifications though. So, but yeah,
And most of these tests, I think it's going to be straight up command line. It's not going to be like, hey, I'm going to go through
Running systems
KDI
or
and
your
click on
PID.
this. Yep.
Yep. Uh, so process IDs, user and group management. Putting users into forms of LDAP as well, local groups. The networking aspect, IP tables, and um, the Linux networking stack, service configuration, and storage management. I think this is pretty straightforward. So if you buy the certification with the training, it's $499. You can't beat that. On Black Friday, it's actually 50% off, which is another thing you can't beat. Um,
What would you say are prereqs? Like, what are the fundamentals that you need to have before trying to jump into that?
well, you got to know Introduction to Linux, which is what I'm showing right here. So LFS 101. So Linux Foundation 101. It's a free program, or it's a free training. So you enroll in it, and it's going to go over 60 hours of course material, hands-on labs and assignments, video content, discussion forums, limited access to online course, optional paid certificate of completion. So you get a certificate out of it, um, and it's built for the beginner. There's 18 chapters to this. You really can't beat this. It's free. So it's better to go through this first and then take that exam, because I heard that exam is pretty difficult. It's very challenging if you haven't taken a performance exam before.
And also, just to point this out, Sean, Linux is a free and open source operating system. You can download it from anywhere. The one that's equivalent to Red Hat, which is the one that you will be performance or working on, or not working on, but testing on. Red Hat is most likely what's going to be there. So PF Sense is the equivalent of Red Hat. It uses the same package manager, a lot of the same commands, um, and all you have to do is spin up one of those in a virtual machine. You have Windows, you can install VirtualBox, Oracle VirtualBox. That's free. It's the equivalent to VMware. VMware also has their version. Is free. It's the home version, but you can spin up a Linux box and
Mhm.
go through and learn the commands there as well.
Mhm.
So,
Would you recommend CentOS too?
yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
If you're used to using Red Hat, then I would. But most people entry into Linux has been, well, that I know of, has been Ubuntu, and
Mhm.
that uses a different package manager and all that stuff
Yeah.
when it comes to the way things work. But the core applications that you will be testing on, like what Mike was talking about, firewalls, that's IP tables, all that stuff is in there. No matter what operating system, all those core packages are in most Linux distributions.
I
Oh, I
think the
appreciate that.
the yeah, I think the exam actually only gives you three options. So it's Cent, Ubuntu, and I think SUSE. I think SUSE is the third option.
Okay, I didn't know they yeah, because the commands are slightly different, but as far as configuring the servers, it's pretty much the same. It's a configuration file. A Linux operating system is basically consists of a bunch of files and folders, um, and in order to configure those applications, it's a it's a configuration file or a config file that you go in and modify, and um, and you'll be good to go.
Mhm.
Now, if you got Windows 10, you should have Hyper-V on there. You can just download the ISO, install it, and you're good to go.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and then when
yeah, you
oh
should be able to
sorry.
do that. Go right
Yeah,
ahead.
and then Windows 10 also they came out with the whole
Patch shell.
Ubuntu.
Yep.
No, the Ubuntu, you can install it onto Windows 10. A Linux operating system is kind of running in a virtual type thing or whatever, where you can run certain applications, Linux applications within it. So
Hmm. Yeah, and the reason why I bring up the selection process between the three variants is that because if you're comfortable with one, um, you're not reduced down to just a different version that you're not used to. So it's easier for you to build your skills up on a on your preference. So that's actually going to be fundamental in going into ace in that exam. I talked to a few people who have passed the exam. The ones who have failed only failed it once the first time around, but the second time around they came in and aced it. And I just also want to point this out too is that when you go into an interview for a role like this, they're going to ask you to perform. You can't just say I'm Linux certified. I got my Linux Plus, I got this, I got that, and you can't actually demonstrate that in an interview. You're not even going to make it to the second and third round.
Facts.
and just to piggyback off of that, a lot of times they bring in um someone that you will be working with within that department or whatever, and they'll ask you those technical questions just to see how you respond. And they'll eliminate you if you can't answer.
With getting a
Q Q. Let me just answer this quick. Q497 asks, does he mean run Linux within the shell? Any of you guys want to take that? Josh, Christian.
I'm trying to remember what it's called, but you can actually it's kind of like you know how you can go into Windows and like activate certain services, turn on ISS and all that. It's a way to put Ubuntu on there. I don't use Windows 10 on a daily basis, so I would have to look it up. But I remember they was talking about it a while back, and it may be a certain version of Windows 10, or I think they open it up to all of them now. But you can let me look it up I'll look it up and
Mhm.
answer in a second.
I'm trying to bring mine up now too. I think it's kind of like you can bring up PowerShell, you can bring up command prompt, and I think it is shell based. Q497.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, Ubuntu Bash. So you can do
Yeah,
bash
that's bad shell.
scripting and all that. Yeah, all that.
Mhm. All right, the last one of my recommendations for 2019 is Cisco CCNA security. Um, Network security, cybersecurity, information security. Um, they have their variations, but in this instance, I'm going to recommend CCNA security because just about every organization still uses Cisco routers and switches. If they don't have routers and switches, they're using Meraki. Um, CCNA security. So basically, you're doing all your RNS, which is routing and switching, but you're also focusing on the network security aspect. Uh, so it's just one required exam, and the prerequisites for this is, if I remember correctly, it's the associate level of the ICND1. So basically, the CCENT. So if you can pass this, you pass the CCENT, then you can take this track that makes you CCNA security certified. I know some guys go up to CCNP, but that's like at the lead network engineer level. If you're not even at that level, it doesn't make any sense to go for CCNP because for what? You don't have the past experience to really take on that responsibility. So doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Why waste your time and lose a lot of your confidence going into an exam that you might fail? I know a lot of guys who fail CCNP, and because they just wanted CCNP over CCNA, and they didn't do a whole lot of their research to really understand the fundamentals of network professional. So they underestimated it. But basically, if you pass CCNT, you should be able to take on the next track, which is this one, to become the CCNA security. So I think that this is actually a still relevant exam, despite what I said earlier about software-defined networks being the emerging platform. You still have a whole lot of hospitals that are in the government as well. Government operations still rely on Cisco equipment. They trust Cisco. Cisco is a great partner with the government, so those routers and switches aren't going anywhere anytime soon. At least for the federal government, they're still going to be in play. I would recommend Network Plus. I say read the book. Read the Network Plus exam book. You can get the Pearson book is actually pretty good. Read that book, and then go in and then knock out the the CCENT book. There's a lot of overlap there, but the foundational aspect of the Network Plus is still really good because it also focuses on Windows and Linux and stuff like that from a network support perspective. And that's still good. That's still really good because there's still a lot of things that you may not know about Linux or Windows networking support that is involved in Network Plus. So that's still a relatively good thing to read. I don't recommend you take the Network Plus if you're going to take the CCNA security. I think you should take the CCENT because you need to take that anyways to get that CCNA security certification. So, Brother Rob, what's going on? It's good to see you over here. Hit that like button if you have not, brother. You gentlemen have anything you want to add to this in terms of CCNA? What's your thoughts on network security?
Yeah, I just got a quick question for you, Mike. If you,
Yes, sir.
I know you can get into these jobs with the certifications and get entry level positions, but is does this completely rule out college? Like, if you still have a desire to go to college, is that a waste of time, or is it just get these certifications and go get a job?
You can do it both ways. Getting into some big jobs without a college degree only happens when you have the networking background. When I'm talking about network, I'm not talking about IP networking. I'm talking about social networking. Who do you know matters more than what you know at that point. So a lot of my opportunities have come from people that actually know me, have requested me, right? So I've been to certain events, certain tech events and stuff like that, and I've been that guy at the table, chopping up game with certain guys from big organizations, and they heard me speak and they say, here's my business card, hit me up or add me to your LinkedIn, and before you know it, a few weeks later or a few days later, I'm being sent emails and messages to LinkedIn like, hey, would you mind coming in, for a quick interview, quick chat, let's have breakfast or brunch or something like that. And then, I'm being offered, I'm being made an offer by Thursday or Friday, if that happened on Monday or Tuesday, to come work for their company. That's pretty much the social networking aspect because I know somebody from Dell or I know somebody from HP or I know somebody from Oracle. You know, they see I got ties with a lot of people. They, you know, I've been introduced by certain people, and then you know that's how that recommendation goes. But if you got a degree, that's even better because that just beefs up your background. I always think personally that I think that black men should always go to college. That's just my thing. I think that you should have that academic background, that academic experience, and then you should also have the certifications to just to be loaded up, and you should also have you know the social networking aspect too. So that's my perspective. If you don't have a degree, you need some heavy social networking to you know be involved. You gotta be at those events. You gotta have boots on the ground, or else you know no one's gonna know who you are. They can't vouch for you.
No, I got you. It's just because every time I express a desire to go back to school for this, everybody's like, "Man, you don't." Sorry, everybody's like, "Well, you could just get the certifications. You don't need to go back to school." And it's just me. I have a personal desire to go back and get a computer science degree and then jump into the field.
Computer science is different than in information systems. Computer science focuses on the principles of computer engineering. Information systems is different because it focuses on the IT aspect. Computer science is not IT. It's actually the engineering aspect of or it's the soft aspect of computer engineering. So unless you plan on getting into the engineering aspect, software development aspect, it's not gonna. I don't recommend computer science. I recommend you find a community college that does information systems or yeah, information systems or IT networking. 2 year degree is not going to hurt. Um, it's better to have the associates than to not have it. I know that there's nano degrees on Udacity you can take now. So, but those are really track focused. But I still think that having that associate's degree from community college is actually better than to not have any sort of degree at all. You can actually use your certifications to get through certain classes, which is what I did for my undergrad. So I had A plus and I had Network plus and stuff like that, and I just skipped right past certain classes. So I graduated early.
Copy that. Copy that. But do they have four? Do they are they only 2 years for information systems? Because I hadn't even looked at that. Do they have 4 years?
Associate's degrees, yeah, associate's degrees are only 2 years. So you don't need a 4 year. You don't need 4 years to do information systems. You can do that in 2 years.
Oh, copy, copy.
Yeah, Google actually has. If you're just trying to get in to IT, Google actually has a pretty good platform for IT support. I forget the name of the certification now, but I think there's like a 6 month program that you can join, um, and it teaches you technical support, IT technical support. I'm not a big proponent of it, to be honest with you. I think that we as black men we have to be in a leadership position or a very powerful position where you're the go-to guy, you're the sixth man off the bench, or you're a starting guard, right? Or you were the starting five. That's why I talk about CCNA, uh, Linux, you know, Linux system admin, um, VMware, AWS, Azure, MCSA, MCSE. Those are big money, big market certifications, and I think that those certifications are the representation of a more leadership role. So I'm not a big proponent of that Google program, but I do think if you're trying to get into IT, maybe that might be the way to go in. That's me personally. I've never taken those type of programs, but full stack developer, artificial intelligence, you know, DevOps, those are big leadership roles. So me personally, always go straight to the top.
Copy that.
Q497 in the chat says you need both and a master's degree. I disagree with that, brother. I think that a master's degree makes sense. A master's degree makes sense if it's on a specific track. So if you got a bachelor's in information systems, if you did your undergrad in information systems, and then you did your master's in information systems management or cybersecurity or what's the other one now? What's the other one now? I can't remember the other one now. But it, if you get any of your master's degree in any of those, that makes sense because now you have a more direct focus and you can kind of target your market better. But personally, I mean, personally, you don't really need a master's. CISSP is actually considered a master's degree at this point because it's so vigorous. It's 250 questions and it's like a 4-hour exam. So that's pretty, you know, that's a pretty big exam. Same thing for like your Red Hat certified systems engineer. That's a big certification. OSCP, another big certification. Those are like master's degrees. Those certifications are like master's degrees. So I wouldn't recommend that you just spend 20, 25, 30 grand on a master's degree versus, 1,000 to 2,000 bucks on a big ticket certification, because I think the big ticket certification is going to have more return on investment than a master's degree at, five or six times the value. Just my opinion. You guys on the panel have anything you want to add to that?
Back in. I had an update right in the middle of the hangout.
Oh man.
So with that Linux system admin, is that a good step towards working your way up to try to get that Red Hat architect certification?
It is. It's like the entry level. So if you can pass that LFCS, you can actually pass the Red Hat Certified System Administrator. They're both the same.
And then from there, can you work up to the architect, the Linux, that Red Hat certified architect?
Yeah, but you need to pass the several tracks, right? You got to go through RHCS, CSS, and then you got to go through RHCE, and then you got to go through to architect. And from my understanding, architect is really difficult. I don't know. I only know one guy that had architect, and that's all he does for work, right? So in order for you to get architect, you got to be you got to be a master, basically. But at that level of being an architect, you're pretty much writing your own ticket. Architects usually are in a very high leadership role for any organization. They're usually like the director of information systems, or they really don't do the work. they don't do any grunt work. They're actually the ones who design the enterprise architecture for the environment of any organization, and they basically delegate the work out. That's usually a big senior role. That's a major senior role. One of my mentors is actually an architect himself. He's a cybersecurity architect, and he just floats about. He writes his own. He makes up his own hours. He kind of writes his own ticket. So once you're in an architectural role, that's a big step for leadership.
Yeah, and that's my whole aim, to work up to that level. So that's why I wanted to link with you, because I knew I could get the information from you. So.
Yeah, Linux architects, system architects, those guys usually have quite a few years under their belt. It's very rarely that they're young. Most of the architects I know are north of 40, so they're usually late 30s, early 40s, if not mid 50s, up there in their 50s. So it's usually a certification for people with tenure.
Copy that, and I'm ready to put the work in.
Mm-hmm. So we're in open. Yeah, we're in open mic right now. This mentorship talk. So any of you guys in the chat have anything you want to ask, you can actually ask it now.
Jack Charles want to know what's a typical day look like for us.
You can start.
I usually supposed to work the 9 to 6 shift. I've been staying there to like 11 o'clock lately, late at night. But usually, as soon as I get in the door, I get yelled at about all the fires we gotta get put out. Such and such is down. This happened. This happened. So I usually get yelled at first, find out all the problems, and start working my way from the biggest fire down to the smallest fire.
Mm-hmm.
That could be like a Windows update.
I actually can't hear Christian. I might have to drop off and come back.
All right.
John, are you doing anything in
Green and women have.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, Mr. Christian. Yeah, I'm actually like if IT's the building, I'm in the parking lot trying to park the car. Like I'm a truck driver and I'm using that to fund my whole IT career and ambition. So right now I'm on the road. So that's why I was calling in to try to get information. Yes, sir.
You and Jack Charles are in the same boat. He's actually a truck driver himself, so.
Oh, see, yeah, I didn't know that, but it was just a way for me to get some quality income because it's not cheap getting the career. I mean, it's not expensive, but it's not cheap as well. So I wanted to find a way to support myself so I could be able to do these things and not be worried about money while I'm trying to pursue this.
Yeah, typical day for me. I come to work and I can work from home too, but for this time around, I'm going to be in the office for quite some time. Typical day for me is I come in, I'm looking at my dashboards that I have set up. I'm seeing all of the events and actions that I've indicated that I want to monitor. I can see all the emails and stuff that are malicious and non-malicious and things of that nature. So basically, I'm looking at my whole entire environment through one single dashboard. I'm looking at all my alerts for my tickets, taking priority. I'm delegating it out. I got interns that are under me that I deal with. I have leadership that I have to communicate with at a certain time of the day. Usually the first couple hours in the morning, I'm going through my leadership talks, and then for the rest of the day, I'm just managing my dashboard and my queue. I'm cleaning up my queue, cleaning up my dashboard, and then I might go through another meeting, and then I'm pretty much done. I'm on my way home. So.
Anybody else got any other questions?
Josh, can you hear Christian now?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay.
No, was y'all asking me something or?
There was a question initially in the chat. What is your daily? What is your day like as you for work?
Okay. Yeah. See, it all depends on what I guess position. Like right now, I'm working a remote position, and on the day-to-day, I actually have to use Windows. So that's one thing I don't really like about it. But I mean, just starting out, it's basically tech support at a kind of a lower level at the moment. But I just mainly come in and check for tickets and call out to the customers and fix the issues. So I mean, throughout the day, that's really all I do. But I've worked in different positions. I even worked in Afghanistan for a couple of years. I worked as a database developer. I developed a database with back end. So that was like 12 hours, 12-hour shifts. And just mainly once you get the database developed to where the application works properly, then it's really a lot of just coming up with stuff for your job throughout the day, actually, to make yourself like developing improvements on the application itself, at that point. So it's kind of like on cruise control, um, on the development side.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically what I'm getting at is it all depends on what type of job you're working. Like I've worked as a network administrator. I know a lot of stuff is going to the cloud now, but when I first came in, I started as a network administrator, and I kind of sat in the server room all day, with no
Mm-hmm.
really not much human interaction,
Yeah,
So,
they leave you to your own devices.
yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Rick Boss in the chat has a question. He says, "What's y'all opinion on asterisks?" I don't remember if that was discussed. Any of you guys know what he's referring to?
I don't. I was trying to think of what he meant by that. You want to rephrase that, please, Rick?
I think asterisk was a soft PBX system, if I remember correctly. I think that was used for like telephony, enterprise telephony. It was open source, maybe. Hmm. Yeah, that used to be a open source platform.
Okay.
I don't have any experience with that. I know people who have used it, but I don't have any experience with it. So
Neither do I.
Yeah, I know a friend of mine actually. I think if this is what he's talking about, Asterisk, I remember he set up a PBX system and also set up a dollar system. So some people I know, all those calls, all those scam calls you get, and just the
mm-hmm.
calls, just advertising crap. They'll use these
Mm-hmm.
type of open source platforms or PBX systems in order to auto dial out to, once they put the leads into the system. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in quite some years. I haven't seen that in quite some time.
Yeah.
All right, next question in the chat was from Michael Holt. Says, so Mike, the infrastructure you secure is strictly cloud based. It's a mix. So we operate off a multi-cloud environment, and then we have on-prem. Um, the on-prem stuff is actually just a few network devices that connect you out to the cloud, and then everything else is endpoint systems, user endpoint systems like your laptops, your phones, and things like that. I don't really have too much oversight over that. What I focus on vulnerability management in the cybersecurity perspective. So I'm always what they call threat hunting. So I'm always going after active campaigns and things like that that may affect the organization. Get to them before they get to us. So that's what I do. Or is it a hybrid mix of on-prem and cloud? It's a mix. Most organizations are very mixed.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you brought up earlier. Um, I've seen some. I mean, well, you was saying this earlier about
Mm-hmm.
certain applications that or on like older systems that are on prem that if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. And it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuck in that state where they don't want to move it and to the cloud. So
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of companies have a hard time really embracing cloud because it's not in their possession. it's in somebody else's environment, so they're very apprehensive about putting all their eggs in one basket. So that's where the fear of and uncertainty comes from. So you gotta kind of take that from them, and because they have to, in order for them to trust the cloud, they also have to trust you, who's going to be the person managing all that stuff. And for a lot of companies, that's hard. If you're a black man in that position, it's hard for them to trust you, just off of GP, right? Just off of general principle. But when it comes to the cloud, that's a whole culture shock for them because they're used to walking into a data center. They're used to knowing where their data center is. In the cloud, you don't really have that sort of reassurance. Your nearest cloud and cloud center may be somewhere in DC or in Virginia, something like that. So, Jason Shorter asks, what work pressures do you experience if you can't resolve a ticket or fire? That's something for you, Christian.
I can work for a pretty decent
I
team.
think.
So like, yeah, we may not be able to get the fire taken out like within a couple of hours, like the client will want, but we usually get most
Mhm.
of the stuff done within a day or two. Just depends what the fire is.
Mhm. Josh.
Well, I kind of handle just kind of on a lower level, and mainly helping with people log in, um, and just basic tech support. Now, I mean, I've had issues where people can't connect to the VPN, just basic technical issues. But um, a lot of times we kind of share work. So depending on if I can't figure it out, somebody else may know. So it could get resolved. So I mean, but I've also worked at a higher level where the internet has went out and everybody's wondering what's going to happen or what's going on, uh and I've had to stay late till 10 o'clock at night to try to solve an issue. So I mean, it all depends on the company itself.
Mhm. It also depends on the volume of the environment, like you said. How many tickets may be coming in. There's been times when early in my career where I may go all day without seeing a ticket, especially on a Friday. 5 o'clock comes and that one ticket comes in, and I miss my train, I miss my bus. So you know, the pressures of trying to resolve an incident, man. It can be brutal, especially if you're a remote guy because you don't have access to the device. You can't see it if it's offline. You're trying to walk a person who's ignorant about troubleshooting and support. That can be pretty brutal, depending on which side of the fence you are on, whether you're remote or you're on-prem. If you're on-prem, they may come see you. They may cuss you out. I've been cussed out by higher up people spitting in my face, that type of deal. And I think a lot of that comes from microaggressions of racism, plus compounded with the fact that their system really doesn't work, whether it's their fault or not. You're the scapegoat, so they will attack you. They will bring the drama to you, and as a black man, you gotta learn to manage your temperaments because you can find yourself in a very difficult situation where your back is against the wall and someone is blaming you for something that you may not even have anything to do with. You know, um, someone pushed out a bad update to a laptop or something like that, and next thing you know, the laptop doesn't boot back up, or it's slow, or something. It's just not working for whatever reason. I had a woman, or I should say, a user who had a laptop, one of these Lenovo X1s or something like that, one of the ultra thins, and open up multiple tickets about this device not working. Well, when I went to go look at the device, the reason why it doesn't work is because a liquid was spilled on it. Well, guess what? This person used to take their coffee or whatever it was and used to dunk ice into it on their desk. He used to, kind of like a basketball into a hoop. And every time they would dunk some ice into that coffee, it would splash right onto the laptop. and within a few minutes that laptop was shorting out. We finally came to the conclusion after smelling it. We could smell the mocha coffee or whatever it was that they had. We're not replacing this. We're not going to pay for that. Why should we pay for a new logic board, $500 or whatever it is, because you keep dunking ice into your coffee? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You're costing the company a lot of money. You're costing us a lot of downtime. Why should we deal with this? So we've rewritten our policy, and this user has to pay for it now. All of that dunking, your ice cubes into a coffee, that's stopped. So that's the type of stuff that you have to go through when we're trying to resolve a ticket and dealing with customers. So.
And just to add to that,
Next
people don't
question.
like change. But go ahead.
Yeah, you're right about that. They don't like change. Yeah, this person used to try to cuss me out and all types of stuff, and I could smell it. I could smell there's some kind of liquid on it. If it's water, one of the things about water versus other beverages is that water evaporates. Coffee doesn't evaporate. It sticks right to the motherboard. Once that sucker sticks in the motherboard, it'll eat right through the etchings, and it completely destroys it. So a lot of laptops today can actually handle a few ounces of water. I'm not sure how they secure the laptops with water versus other liquids, but I know I think like some of the Lenovo's can handle at least 2 or 3 ounces of water before it becomes non-functional. If you
Mike, you still there?
Yeah, I think he dropped off for a second. Hey, Mike.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
There you
got you
go.
now.
Okay. I got cut off. So I was saying about SAP. I think SAP falls under CRM, if I remember correctly. So it's also a software as a service now. Before I don't think it was a SaaS before, but now it's a SaaS. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, who else had a question? Rick Boss has a question for the panel. It says, when you began your IT careers, how long did it take for you to start retraining or retaining the information? And what strategies did you use to retain all the data?
I just put all what I learned into practice and figure out how I can make it work for me. Example, like, well, I was taking a database class. I had to figure out, okay, what type of database could I use? And I wrote up a database on all the videos I had and then all the comic books I had. And they actually came in handy when I got robbed. I turned all this stuff to insurance and I got all my stuff back.
Mm-hmm.
As my experience started getting bigger and bigger as the years went on, I put servers together. That's before VMs were out. I put little servers together. So I was like, okay, here's my domain controller, here's my SQL server, here's this, and I would just practice in the lab. So I would just like not as much just to retain the information, but just to put it into practice and see how can I make this work this way, how can I make this work this way. So the best way I was able to retain it is like lab it, practice it.
Josh?
I'm sorry. What was the question? Because I had to drop off, come back again.
Oh, the question was, when you began your IT careers, how long did it take for you to start retaining the information, and what strategy did you use to retain all the data, all that data?
Oh, okay. Well, one thing I did, I would say that helped me retain things in the beginning. Um, I went to one of the technical schools called Remington, and it was a lot of hands-on training. Like during the beginning of my, I would say my well, close to the end of the associate's degree that I got or whatever, we went through a lot of hands-on training where we was allowed to set up whole environments. We set up servers, and at the time it was like Windows Server 2003 or whatever. And so, I mean, it gave me a good foundation. And for me, that's just the way I've always been. I'm hands-on. In order for me to retain something, I have to actually physically do it, you know, and then I retain it from there, and then I build upon that's that training that I got from it. And so, I mean, it's just, it all depends on your learning style. I mean, some people can get a book and read a book and read how to set up a Windows server, and just after reading that book, go in and set up that server, just by what they learn from reading a book. I don't learn like that. I actually have to do it. So it all depends on, yeah, your learning, the way you learn, so.
Yeah, you're very much a hands-on person.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a visual person myself, so if I see you do it, I can do it too. But I also use multiple. I leverage multiple sources. So I'm a big reader, so I do have a lot of books. Um, I have the Linux Bible and the Windows Bible and those things like that. I have they're reference books, but I have read them. Um, so it does help. Um, Also visual. So I like to watch. I like to watch certain training programs from CBT Nuggets. CBT Nuggets is a great platform. Um, I forget the guy's name. Anthony something. I forget his name, but he's really good too. I used him for my Server Plus exam a long time ago. He's really good. Taking notes, you know. I'm a pen and paper person, but now with my Chromebook, it comes with a pen, so I can write right on the Chromebook itself, and take notes that way. And inside Google's application, which is Keep, is similar to
OneNote.
yeah, similar to Evernote, but it's actually really good because it syncs up with your phone too. You can share things out, so I use that. I'm a person that likes to, anything that's on the table available, I'm gonna use it. Let me see. What's the other one? Oh, to retain all that information, repetition. Um, you do it enough times, you'll figure it out. They say it takes 21 days to learn and break a habit. You know, 21 days is actually a sufficient amount of time for you to repeat that process. And that's part of like what DevOps tries to automate, right? So repeatable processes need to be automated. And in this instance, you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you should be able to automate that process. But that all comes with IT, people, process, and technology. You want to be able to automate those processes in place. So I think a lot of people think that IT is, you go in there, you fix somebody's laptop, but that's not really the case. There's a lot of um, social interaction and skills that need to be mastered, the ability to work under pressure, and the ability to answer questions even if you never heard it before. You got to come up with something sufficient. Saying I don't know sometimes, especially as a black man, that could really be damaging to your credibility, because no one's going to rely on you to answer questions if you say I don't know. Like, guy Mike, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I hate to be in that position, so I learn a lot from reading articles and threads, Reddit, these other places. What are some of these other places, like Quora, and there's quite a few places. But the point that I'm making here is that I try to absorb as much information as possible so that I'm quick to answer any questions in terms of what I do. Especially with cybersecurity. I've been asked several questions just this week where people are like, well, what do you think about the Chinese and the Russians? Does this look suspicious to you? You goddamn right that's suspicious, and maybe we should be looking into this, right? If I said, well, I don't know if that's suspicious, no, I'm pretty sure that's suspicious. We don't do business over this. So that's the type of interactions and experience that I have, in terms of retaining information. So.
Hey, Mike, quick question for you. With the skills gap in big data and cybersecurity, like, do you see those job? Do you see it it taking a while to fulfill all those job roles that are just sitting there empty?
So the thing about those cybersecurity roles that sitting empty, it's a few variations, right? A lot of those roles are ghost roles. So ghost meaning that they were never meant to be fulfilled. So they always keep the job posting up just because. And then the other variation to it is that people, IT managers, security managers, HR, they create these wish lists for a unicorn that, for a person that doesn't exist, which is a unicorn. There's no such thing as an entry level person with a CISSP. It's a contradiction. It's like calling somebody an educated lame. It doesn't make any sense, right? But they put these sort of job descriptions out with responsibilities that are contradictory. Cybersecurity, information security, network security, these are very much different, but for the mainstream, they think it's all the same. It's really not all the same. So sometimes they'll say, well, we're looking for a cybersecurity person that does this, this, and this. Well, guess what? That's an information security person that focuses on compliance. Cybersecurity and information security are different in that aspect, that information security usually looks at the compliance pieces and the risk management pieces, whereas cybersecurity people look at the cyber threats and incident response, and network security people usually focus on your Cisco, your Junipers, your firewall management. So what I'm saying here is that a lot of those roles are being created. They're somewhat fictitious. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to why they do it. There was an article last year on LinkedIn that talked about this, but the reason why a lot of those roles can't be fulfilled is that cybersecurity is not a skill set, it's an art. You have to be able to master that art form. Either you have it or you don't. And a lot of times people just don't have that skill set or that art form, the artistic skills, I should say, to be in those roles. And we see this every day. My organization, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4 of us in security for for a few thousand people. That's that's a lot of work, for for us. For the most part, we have to manage a small village of people with just a few hands. That so it commands a high price because there's so few people to actually fill that role.
Copy.
Mm-hmm. But I think people. So I just want to touch on the cybersecurity piece again. I think people who are trying to get into cybersecurity may not understand the intricate details of that aspect. cybersecurity isn't just about fighting bad guys and stuff like that. There's still a lot of policies that need to be written. There's still a lot of awareness that needs to be delegated. Compliance pieces that are involved in that now because of GDPR and other forms of regulatory practices for cybersecurity now. The incident response piece, that could be stressful. A lot of people aren't cut out for that. And then you factor in vulnerability assessments, vulnerability management, having to talk to people who may not even know what cybersecurity is, even though they work in IT, they just don't really care too much. I'll give you an example. We're going through a major acquisition for this organization, and the other organization doesn't want to use our organization's resources in terms of integration. They want separate resources, but to be on our network. This is a contradiction. And they expect this to be done in the next few weeks. Ain't no way in the world that's going to happen. From a security perspective, if we can't secure what we can't see. So if it's going to be a part of our organization, but not, if it's not going to be a part of our organization and it's going to be a part of our resources, how are we going to secure that? We can't just have rogue people on our network and not being managed by our network and security. That's impossible. That's a liability in itself. So do we create a separate network on a different VLAN, unmanaged? Like I don't think they a lot of people really understand that aspect, because now you're responsible for all these incoming instances coming into your environment. So that's just one aspect of what my daily operations entails. Let me see the chat, if I can see the chat. Hey, Dr. Yaya, what's going on? It says Q497 says the folks that write the job descriptions aren't IT professionals. This is true. This is very true. But then it's not true, because you still have IT professionals who believe that you can get a desktop, you can get a server admin to work for desktop pay. A lot of these roles are just, a whole lot of keywords being thrown in. Are you MCSE? Are you do you have your CCNA? Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have your ITIL? Do you have all these other things? These aspects that really don't matter to a desktop support person at all. You're asking a desktop support person to do server engineering or server administration or system administration, and that's really not their job. And I think a lot of IT managers have this wish list too, that you should actually be able to do all of these illustrious things, at a small price, at a desktop support person's price or wage, I should say. It's unrealistic. So a lot of those unrealistic ideas are coming from IT management too. Why can't you write Python? Because I don't work in Python. Why the hell do I need to know that? Q4 says you can't, but your department will take blame should something go wrong. Not sure what he's referring to.
Hey, Mr. Mike and the rest of the panel, I just want to thank you guys for all the information that you guys have been sharing. I got to get ready to run and drop this load off, so I just want to appreciate it. I'll be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And before you go, I'll put this out there as well. Starting, tonight, anybody who wants some IT mentorship, make sure you email the Black Brain Trust or leave your comments under the video after this stream ends. Also, I'll be doing people's resumes over as well. So if you have a resume that looks, outdated or something like that, I can actually help you out with that too. So
Yeah, I'll definitely be in touch with you on the mentoring piece. I'm gonna definitely need your guidance on that.
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Sean.
Hey, appreciate you, Mr. Josh. Mr. Keep it techie. Thank you. Appreciate it. You too,
For
Mr.
sure.
Christian.
All right, brother. Have a safe drive.
All right, thank you. Bye bye.
Any closing thoughts from you, Christian?
Nothing I can think of offhand. Now, I'll say this: I've taken some of your advice that you told me to do for the
Mm-hmm.
mentorship, and all the interviews I've taken. I've probably taken like 18 of them now.
Interviews with who?
Different companies.
Okay, okay.
About switching over. Yeah, some shape,
Which?
form, fashion stuff that you suggested,
Mm-hmm.
they asked for.
Okay. What is your ambitions?
Um,
System admin, system engineer.
think about just going back to engineer. I've done admin before,
Mm-hmm.
and I've actually applied to go to the next level doing system integration at the job I'm at now. I'm waiting to see how that goes. They said so far it looks pretty good, and I've interviewed with a couple of other companies. One at my old job at the hospital, they
Mm-hmm.
asked if like, hey, if you hurry up and go ahead and get your VMware certification, we'll bring you in for 80.
Okay.
Yeah, and you think you suggested that like 2 or 3 months back, about the beginning of the year, you suggested I should take that.
Yeah, you got to get that, man. Got to get that. If you're going to be at a system engineer's role, got to get that. VMware, your Linux cert. You already have Security Plus, so that's not a big deal. And that's not your responsibility, anyways, to be in terms of cybersecurity. That's not your responsibility. But from a system engineer standpoint, um, VMware, Red Hat cert, or your LFCS, LFCE, Linux Foundation certified engineer. Those those two together, that's a very that pretty much drives your direction and tells everybody else where you stand. So, but good for you though.
No, thank you. Thank you for giving me the advice. I do appreciate it.
Mhm.
I'll send you a copy of my resume I redid. Tell me what you think.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, one of the people that I interviewed with, I told them I was taking classes at Linux Academy. They told me I
Mhm.
should put that down on my resume.
Yeah, you
I,
should.
okay. I usually just put down the skills I have and where I worked. I was like,
No, no. If you're a part of any sort of like nonprofit groups or something like that, you always want to make sure you kind of list those out in your resume at the bottom.
okay.
So, but that's the part we could talk about that later. Um, Josh.
Yeah. I don't really have much closing thoughts, but I mean, I also took your advice, rewrote my resume,
Mhm.
um, and I'm gonna just send it to you offline or whatever.
Yep.
See if you could check it out again for me. But
Mhm.
I mean, one thing I can say to everybody is, I mean, just train, train, train. All these resources out here, um, training, all this stuff Mike's showing you guys. Just take advantage of it, especially if you're young, and just take advantage of the training, and it'll help you in the future. The little bit of money you spend on some of this training will greatly improve your situation for the future. So,
Mhm.
You want to go ahead and plug in your channel, Techie?
oh yeah, I mean,
You could drop the link. You could drop the link in the chat. I think you have a wrench. So.
okay. Well, I mean, if anybody interested, I do a tech channel, a tech Linux channel. It's just mainly all about Linux. So if you guys interested, just check it out. I just do videos um, on different things I find in Linux. So and different applications, all that. So
It says Chris McDonald asks, what certs are good for getting a knock tech job? So network operations center technician. Network Plus is always the go-to for network operations. Um, Server Plus is actually relatively relevant. You don't need it, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to get it, especially if they're going to pay for it. I would definitely get that. CCNA, that's another one as well. Most environments that network operation centers, they're CCNA or they're Cisco. They're all in with Cisco. And I would probably throw in ITSM, IT Service Management. That certification just got updated, I think back in February. So get the ITIL 4. ITSM, the certification is only about $120, and I think it's like 30 questions. Can't really beat that.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah, ITSM is important if you're going to stay in a support role. I know a lot of guys who they love support, and they make a lot of money from it. You know, they're usually in a senior role within 6 to 9 months, and they're making big bucks off of it. ITIL is, the service level framework for most support organizations. So, Christian, he says just the AWS cert. This is Chris McDonald. He's asking a question. I don't know if you can answer that.
Oh no, not just that. I was just thinking that was a good place to start.
Okay.
Because most because I'm taking the Linux Academy course, they say like, okay, this is a great place to start for NOCs.
Mhm. Yeah, it depends on what they do, what kind of business they're dealing with. If they're dealing with the government, they really require you to have your Network Plus and your A Plus and certain things like that within a certain time frame. I think like 45 days. Um, just the AWS cert, also an A Plus or CCENT cert. No. You get your AWS cert if you're gonna support AWS systems. That's the way how it goes. A Plus and CCENT, those are support certifications. So you work in support, you should have them. Jason Shorter asks, can you talk about how an IT interview goes? How do you prep, and what should you expect? I was hoping the Gone would be on tonight for that because that's what he was supposed to be here for. I guess he got a little tied up, but I'll speak to it right now. Interviews depend on the role. If you're going for a higher up role, I know a person last week. They went through a 5-round interview. I mean, it was brutal for them. They didn't even make it past the second round. So it all depends on the kind of role that you're trying to get into. I only had to go through one role for my previous roles and the role that I'm in now. So and it's mostly because of the networking aspect. So I leverage my networking with other people, and I was able to get in that way. So how an interview goes is basically it's 1/3 skill, 1/3 personality, and 1/3 what you expect from the organization. Sometimes in an interview you may be asked some pretty random questions, but expect all the basic terms you should know. What is what is the DNS port? What is port 80? What does that refer to? What is SSL? What is SSH? What is Active Directory or LDAP? They're gonna fire those questions off to you really quickly, and they're expecting you to answer it. They may print out some logs, and you got to identify what's the incoming IP versus the source IP, or what's the outgoing IP. From a troubleshooting perspective, you got to identify these areas. So they're asking you some very pertinent questions depending on what role you're going to be going for. Interviews are usually anywhere between 45 minutes to maybe 2 hours. I went through an interview with 5 different people for 3 hours. It was pretty brutal. My brain was pretty mushed after that because they pretty drilled down. They drilled down pretty hard on you. So he says, how do you prep and what should you expect? If you know your stuff, you really don't have to prep. You got your certifications. They're expecting you to know what was on that certification. If you just read a book or if you try to cram for it, an exam, I can tell you right now that they're gonna follow up on it. Because if you can't answer certain questions that are a part of that certification, that interview is over and done with. I see many people who get their CISSP but could not identify a cybersecurity threat for the life of them. They were terrible, absolutely terrible. What should you expect? Expect the worst if you're a black man. Expect the worst.
I think in one of my interviews I took, I got a question that was on Reddit. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck in an interview?
Mm-hmm.
And I just answered it. I was like, since I know jujitsu, I'd rather take a horse-sized duck because if I get my arms around its neck, I can choke it out. Didn't know how to answer that question. They pretty much laughed at it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and they'll also throw questions in there. I mean, it all depends on the position. Like for one, I applied for an analyst type position, and I interviewed for a company, and I remember this one question stuck out. They just asked me randomly, how many quarters will fit on this conference room table, just to see how you answer the question and just to see if you have an analytical like kind of mind for that specific position that I was going for. But that was one of the questions that stood out to me.
Yeah, I've been asked similar questions. How many different ways can you use a pencil?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you can write with it, you can erase with it, you can draw with it, you can put it in your ear, put up your nose. It was so many stupid things that I can't believe it was even asked to begin with. But those are the curveballs that they're trying to throw at you to see how you think on your feet. That's the whole purpose of it. How do you think on your feet? So this brother is actually asking for an entry level cert. Chris McDonald. He's asking how I'm thinking that Network Plus and the ITSM would be good for entry level. A plus is usually the beginning. Network Plus is usually the next step from A plus, from the A plus certification. ITSM is usually something that you'll get after those 2 certifications, mostly because of the technical. The ITSM is more of a it's more of a line of business support tool. if you're using ServiceNow or you're using Remedy. It's good to have that because it puts it helps you understand the people, process, and technology aspect of the support process. So that's where that comes in. How much would the pay rate be for an entry level job in the South? In Houston, I know Houston's a hot place for tech, but I don't know what the going rates are down there. I can only tell you the going rates up here. Going rates for an IT person, it would be anywhere between 18 to 22 bucks an hour. That's pretty normal up here. Senior level, you're gonna get 32 to $34 an hour. But pay rates are usually dependent upon how much skill you have. You can negotiate your salary when you have enough skill. If you don't have a whole lot of skill, you got to kind of accept what you can get. Oh, an estimate in the South would probably be the same as the North. You know, it's going to be in the late teens, early 20s. Well, once you get a certification, then you're in a different league. So they're expecting certain things from you. So you can negotiate your salary somewhat better when you have your certifications than when you don't. So if you get your Network Plus, yeah, you can determine whether or not you want to take the $18 an hour or do you want to take the $22 an hour. You can negotiate that. So people who have their own certs kind of write their own tickets. Is the rule of thumb here. Hey, no problem. No problem. My closing thoughts would be, you got to read, man. A lot of black men don't read, and so they're not really hip to the game. You know, reading, coming to these hangouts and looking at these articles and stuff like that that we cover. The reason why we put a docket in there so you can actually we cite our sources for one, but number two, you can actually refer back to it, so you understand what's going on in the market. You know, someone asks you in an interview, what's your thoughts on AWS? You can come back with a response and say, yeah, AWS is, you know, their market share, they're doing 41% just for 2019 alone. So, they're doing pretty well, but Microsoft is coming up on them with Azure, and, Azure is slated to take away a lot of their market share by 2020. That's actually a decent response, because now you've taken control of the conversation from the interviewer to the interviewee. A lot of times what happens with black men is that they get into these conversations or they get into these interviews and they don't really have the confidence because they're kind of insecure within themselves because they're dealing with somebody that doesn't look like them, that they feel that they are inadequate for certain roles or things of that nature. And that's why a lot of black men get paid less than their white counterparts. It's not just because of racism. It's also a factor that we're not negotiating our salaries up front. Before I even get to the interview in person, I'm telling them over the phone, this is my bare minimum. We're not talking about that. We're not even having an interview. So Chris McDonald, we're not going to talk about the latter of your comment, but it's not so much that we're just ignorant, but we just refuse to read. There's a lot of black men that don't want to spend 90 minutes a day and actually study your certs, man. You got to spend that time, because you got to create this sort of practice of knocking out 30 to 60 minutes a day and studying your certs, because that's enough time for you to absorb before your exam. And once you get to your exam, a lot of the questions they're going to throw at you are pretty repetitive anyways. A lot of that stuff is already in the book. You walk in there confident, and you just knock that out. I've only failed one exam. I failed my auditor's exam, but that's because I had the wrong book. You know, I read the wrong book. Nothing in that book ever covered what was on the exam, so I was SOL on that, man. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. It's been great, and we will see you on tomorrow with the yeah, we'll see you tomorrow with the cannabis hangout with Business Wealth and Power.
Thank you,
Later.
everybody.